joining us. You don't have to worry about taking notes and writing down all of the different little website links and things that we're going to share with you, because we're going to send you a PDF of the PowerPoint at the close of the meeting, so you can just sit back and relax. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to our second official First Gen Education Grad Students meeting. I'm Dr. Maureen Spellman. I work in the Department of Education. I work in educational leadership, and I also guide the program in leadership and higher education. You're going to meet some of our liaisons today. We have Tatiana Barakat and Brianna Wilson with us, and we also have our guest speaker, Dean Stephen Maynard Carliando with us today. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what we're doing and what our agenda is going to be. We're going to start out with some just general introductions. Then we're going to talk about some of the resources and opportunities that are available to you here at North Central as a first gen student. Then we're going to give most of the time to our guest speaker and follow up with some Q&A. So let's start with Julia, who is not with us today. Julia was the original liaison for this program. She's a wonderful graduate assistant in the office of the library. She is a first generation student, and she's very proud with her undergrad program. You can see her graduation. She was an NCC undergrad. And she's very proud of her puppies. So she's really in the throes of her last 8 weeks here on campus and was not able to join us tonight. So I just wanted to introduce Juliana. And now I'm going to let Tatiana introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana Barakat. This is my second semester at North Central College. I'm really thrilled to be here with you all. I'm a current 7th and 8th grade ELA teacher at Wilkins Junior High in School District 109 in Cook County. I'm an educational leadership candidate and also a school improvement team member at my school district. I'm really excited to be a part of this group and just, to be here with you all. So it's very nice to connect.
Thank you, Tatiana. And now I'd like you to meet Brianna Wilson, our other first gen grad liaison.
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. I am currently a special education teacher at Leiden High School, District 212. I got my undergrad at ISU, like right in the midst of COVID-19. So being here with at North Central, I'm really excited for graduation, being able to actually walk across the stage for my master's, which would be pretty cool. So this is actually my second semester in the same program as Tatiana here at North Central. And at my high school, I'm part of the district and equity leadership team and doing some really fun and interesting work in there that's super applicable to what I've been learning from Dr. Spellman and other, great professors here. I did put just a fun photo of a couple of my bowlers and their parents, and something that I do outside of, grad school and teaching. It's really passionate about it. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Brianna. And I'm going to pause here for just a moment since we just have a small audience, and I'm going to ask you to please maybe just introduce yourself as our guests and a little bit about you so that we all know a little bit. I know you all, but so that Dean Caliando can get to know you and perhaps some of our liaisons. So Mariela, would you maybe introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Mariela Bagay. I'm currently a middle school newcomer intake liaison and humanities and ELA teacher for newcomer students. And also, this is actually my second master's I'd be working on at the education leadership program. So yeah.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hello, I am one of Tatiana's colleagues. We both teach at Wilkins Junior High School. I am also in the second semester of this program as well. And I have 26 years classroom experience, K through 2 and then 6 through 8. So I haven't done the middle. But I just felt like I wanted to be challenged by this program at this point in my career. I'm also a mother of 4 and a pastor's wife, so I can be pretty busy at times, but I really feel like with my experience and my passion for education, that this program is really challenging me to make a difference for our students and for our schools. So I really appreciate it.
How nice. Thank you. So now I'm going to ask you all just to pause for a moment and smile because Julie Carballo, who's in charge of this program, insists that we take a picture. So smile, everybody. There we go. That was easy. Okay. So I want to tell you a little bit about our person who is actually the Assistant Dean of Students for First Generation, as well as military affiliated initiatives, and that is Mrs. Julie Carballo. She's just a dynamic person that has so much that she has given to this program. She was actually the person who started First Generation with undergrads here at North Central. She's very passionate about the work. As you can see on the screen, she does have offices and grad assistants, and they work out of Siebert Hall. So if you're on campus, it is the very furthest northeast building on our campus. She has asked me to please make sure that you have her contact information, such as her phone number, her email address, and also she's really easy to schedule a meeting with. I've had to schedule meetings with her, and that Calendly.com just works beautifully. Do you need to know that there is a First Generation Center, and it's located in Siebert Hall, right down in room 100. It's a nice space to study if you happen to be on campus and using the library. It's right across from the library. It's a good place to socialize and relax. We do have our Facebook page, and we do have our Instagram. There's also a little lending library of interesting books and things in Siebert Hall. There's a link there that for you, if you're interested in knowing who are all the faculty and staff at North Central that are first generations people. And there's also a link to our website, the Cardinal First website. So if you have any questions that I can't answer, Julie Carballo will definitely be able to answer for you. Let me turn this over now to Tatiana to talk to you a little bit about our Honor Society.
Yeah, so our Honor Society at North Central is really nice because not only is it just recognition of your hard work, but it's also a resume enhancement, and it really enables community engagement as well. So Tri Alpha Honor Society is actually an honor society that recognizes and celebrates academic achievement for first generation graduate students. So our induction is actually taking place on April 18th. And the fee for this is actually $15. I'm sure after your first semester, you would receive an email invite as long as, can you go to the next slide, Dr. Spellman?
Sure.
You meet some of the requirements. So you would have to be a current graduate degree candidate at North Central. You would have had to at least complete 9 credit hours of graduate terms of study towards the degree. However, if you have taken your first semester, you do qualify for that. I'm going to be inducted in April as well, and I actually put in my application after my first semester, which entailed of 4 credit hours. So it's really your first semester or 9 credit hours. So it's really neat. You would have to have an overall GPA of at least 3.5 or above in your coursework, and essentially come from a family where neither parent nor step parents or any legal guardians have received a bachelor's degree. And I think this is really nice because you get to meet other people through this, and you can really be recognized and acknowledged for your hard work, especially as a first generation college student. It's something to be proud of and to acknowledge. If you do have any questions about this, any more details, you can contact Marissa at that email listed in the slide. I definitely had a lot of questions for her, and she was more than happy to answer them, especially since I was a little confused on the 9 credit hour requirement, since I had 4 credit hours my first semester, but I was able to be allowed into the induction ceremony in April. So definitely a lot of resources. If you just reach out and ask, we'll be more than happy to help you.
Thanks, Tatiana. And now we'll turn it over to Brianna, who's going to tell you a little bit about the pinning ceremony that's available.
Yeah, so the Cardinal First pinning ceremony, this is the day before graduation where the large, commencement takes place. So it's definitely a more unique and intimate setting where you get to invite, close family members and friends to see this happen. And so it's on May 3rd. It costs $20. The first souls will go on sale by the end of March. But it's really nice because you get to choose a staff member that, you know, has really impacted you at your time at North Central College, and they will be the ones to, you know, put the pin on you at the ceremony, and then you get to wear it the next day for graduation. So another support that we have is the Writing Center. So you can schedule the Writing Center either in person or through, you know, synchronous online tutoring. But they have recognized that those hours might be difficult, especially for grad students, people who are still teaching while they're in grad school. So they have offered to do asynchronous tutoring as well. So you can send in any of your work, and within 72 hours, send in your work with questions, of course, and then within 72 hours, they will email you back email back feedback, anything to help with your paper. So they can, you know, help you with things like brainstorming, research, citations. I know that's one I like to get help with from time to time, intros, conclusions, things like that. So, you know, give them up to 72 hours to get back to you, but there's a link in here where you can go on the website to schedule any type of appointment that you would need.
Thank you, Brianna. It's a great resource that's available now to grad students, which is wonderful. And so now we come to the exciting part of our afternoon. I want to take a few moments to introduce you to our guest speaker, who is Dean Stephen Maynard Caliando. He is the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at North Central. He's also a professor of political science here. His research expertise is in political psychology, political communication, and race and ethnicity studies. He is actually the co-founder and co-director of the Project on Race in Political Communication, is often asked to provide media commentary on national and local political news programs. Much of those can be found on his YouTube channel. In addition to his professional social networking sites, you can also follow him on Twitter or TikTok. And he has an online scholarly profile on Amazon.com, ResearchGate, Google Scholar, and Goodreads. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Caliando.
Dr. Spellman, thank you so much, and thank you all for inviting me today. I'm so I'm honored to be asked, and I'm happy to be with you. I'm so proud of the work that Julie Carballo has done, and of course that the program has grown. You may not know that Cardinal First actually started as Teach First, and Julie Carballo. So education was a centerpiece of our first generation programming here at North Central, and then Julie moved into a broader institution-wide position, and she's done amazing things. And so I'm very proud to be a first gen student, and very proud to do whatever I can to help support the initiatives that come out of that office, and all of you as first gen students as well. So I just put on this first slide just, who I am professionally, but also who I am personally. That's the kind of session this is, I think. I usually don't put personal things about myself on a slide. And I got a picture of my dog too. I don't know, I guess the memo didn't get it to everybody. You're supposed to put a picture of your dog. I'm not a dog person. I didn't think I was, and now I think I might be. She's right here. She's always right here. I didn't have a dog growing up. And I think, putting it politely, would say that I strenuously resisted getting a dog, but I finally broke 5 years ago, and now she's kissing me. So that's Carmela. I have a daughter who's in graduate school. She's finishing up this semester, in fact, with a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology at Elmhurst, but she's a North Central undergrad graduate. And then I have twins, Johnny and Stella, who are in 7th grade. And my wife, Jillian, is a clinical psychologist in private practice in the city. We live in Chicago. So that's me. I think we could go to the next slide, Dr. Spellman, if it's okay. So we got a picture of Pittsburgh there. I don't know how familiar you are with Pittsburgh. When I grew up in the 70s, Pittsburgh did not look like that. It was much dirtier. It was much smoggier. But that's what it looks like now. It's a pretty nice place. I titled this slide "Roots of Curiosity" because I'm sure that this was some of your experiences as well, or I suspect it might be. My parents, of course, they didn't go to college, but they always expected me to. which seemed a little like, what's up with that? But they always expected me to. And I think that probably was your experiences as well. The other thing I will tell you though is that there were always books in my home. My folks weren't exactly voracious readers, but they did read novels. There weren't a lot of nonfiction books, but there were books. And I have a vivid memory of my parents buying an encyclopedia set. So I think most of you aren't old enough to know what an encyclopedia set is, but they used to come in these bound volumes. They're beautiful, right? Like beautiful, they all match, and there's one for every letter of the alphabet or whatever. And it was like a dictionary, but with the longer entries and pictures and so forth. And the door-to-door salesman used to come around and peddle these things. And I think my folks just believed that that was an important thing to have in the house, that we might do, whatever they understood as research for our school papers, and we did. Now, we also just looked at them out of curiosity, especially the anatomy one. And that was a big deal in my house for my brother and me. And I just know that my parents must have paid for so long. I remember there was a payment, you know what I mean? They couldn't have come up with the money for that on the spot. It was one of these things where the door-to-door salesperson came and then they engaged in some sort of payment plan. So that was just a priority for them. They really wanted us to have information around us. And culturally, neither parent played an instrument. I didn't really have much. I had a little bit of in-school band opportunities, but we had music, lots of music in the house. My dad had an extensive vinyl collection. And we would go to see concerts, and we would go to see plays and go to museums. And so even without the sort of formal training and education, and they certainly didn't have exposure to those things, neither of them did as children. My grandparents weren't, they were steel workers and every stereotype you would expect of a Pittsburgh person in the 1940s and 50s. But my parents were from the the 60s and 70s, and they really believed in culture, and so that was an important part of what I grew up appreciating. And I really, that ended up meaning a lot to me when I got to undergrad, because my curiosity was sort of sparked early on, even though it wasn't through formal education. The last thing I'll say about this slide is that we were what I think is called now house poor. So we didn't have very much money, and there was always the difficulty of keeping up with the latest tennis shoes and stuff. That wasn't happening but it's largely because we lived in a house in a neighborhood that had a really good school district. And so they stretched themselves to get us into that space. And then that was pretty much it. So we didn't go on vacations at all when I was a kid. My dad was out of work a lot. So we certainly weren't poor. We lived in a middle-class neighborhood, but almost everything that was brought in ended up going to the house. And so some of those experiences I didn't get until I went off on my own. Okay, Dr. Spellman, we can. So I ended up, again, I said it was expected that I would go to college. I should say that all of my uncles did. There's a very gendered component to this. You can see. My mother didn't go to college, but her two brothers did. They were younger than her, but they went to college. She got married instead and had me when she was 20. So they went, her two brothers went, and then my father had a little brother who also went to college. And so there were people in my life who had college educations, but not my parents. I didn't apply very widely. I applied mostly in Western Pennsylvania. Ended up going to Clarion University, which is in Northwestern Pennsylvania. It actually no longer exists. The college exists. But if any of you have been following higher education news over the past few years, there's a system of 14 state schools within the state of Pennsylvania. And there really isn't the demographics to support that. So a couple of years ago, 6 of those colleges merged into 2 colleges. So 3 in the West and 3 in the East. And so now Clarion is part of a system called, not a system, but Clarion is part of a university with multiple campuses called Pennsylvania West University at Clarion. So hold on to your Clarion University merchandise, kids, because one day I'm sure that'll be worth a fortune. It's a state school with 6,000 students, which was small to me because a lot of my friends were going to the University of Pittsburgh or to Penn State University. And so those were sort of the big schools. Clarion was what I thought was a small school until I became a professor and really taught at smaller schools. But it was a good experience. I will tell you, though, that I had a variety of experiences because I had two majors. So my English in the English department, I was very scholarly, you know, undergraduates, you know, doing significant work and presenting at regional conferences and so forth. And for the 1980s, that was pretty advanced. In political science, it was exactly the opposite. There were only 3 faculty there. One of them had a PhD. But I think he must have been a witness protection program or something. I don't know where this guy came from. He was like from Vietnam. He hardly spoke English. I don't know. Like it was a very interesting. I don't know how he got there. And the reason I say that is because the other 2 faculty were very advanced in age. They were very, when I say senior faculty, I'm not just talking about their rank. And they had master's degrees because they got jobs in the 1950s at state schools at a time where you didn't have to have a PhD. And that was fine in terms of undergraduate experience. I learned a lot from them. But the problem for me later was I didn't learn about doing research in political science. They weren't members of the American Political Science Association, and they couldn't help me very much in terms of applying to graduate school. So I wanted to get a PhD because I wanted to be a college professor. And I didn't get much guidance from my political science professors. So I applied to 10 schools and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just applied to schools that had name recognition and like MIT. Who cares about MIT and political science? But what did I know? It seemed like it was a smart place to be. Boston College, like I thought I wanted to be in Massachusetts. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't get into any of that. I did get into 2 of the 10 that I applied to. I applied to Purdue University in Indiana. And I applied to a Villanova University, and I got into both. Villanova didn't have a PhD in political science at the time. I don't know if they do now or not. So I went to Purdue because they had a PhD and they accepted me. But when I showed up for the interview day, the director of graduate programs, I can remember so vividly, he told me, we don't know how you're going to do. This wasn't, again, it's the 90s. He probably could have been a little more, but he essentially said, we've never had anybody from Clarion. We don't know how prepared you are. And I'm thinking, I'm really prepared. And then of course I showed up the first day and I was not prepared at all. You know, I was sitting in that first seminar class and realized that so many of the other students who were there got undergraduate degrees at places like North Central or places, big research schools, where they were exposed to the literature, understood methodologies and advanced techniques in ways that I hadn't even seen, let alone knew how to do. And so it was a tough first couple of years. They didn't brought me in with no funding, which was rare. I was just glad to get in, but that means I had to take out loans. I was hungry. It's like lots of ramen. But I remember the funny thing, you know, Purdue is an interesting place. As a Big Ten university, it doesn't have one huge library. Like, so Big Ten universities are often so known for their libraries. Urbana-Champaign's library, like one of the best in the country. But Purdue had, at the time, 15 separate libraries. And so, you know, you'd go to a library if you were interested in this kind of science and this, there was a social sciences library, whatever. There was one library called the undergraduate library, and it was literally underground. And it was broad, and so I found myself in that library reading the stuff that most of my peers had read as undergraduates in the first year. So I was sitting down there underground in this with all these undergraduates in a place called the undergraduate library. And so, you know, in terms of my feelings of imposter syndrome, certainly wasn't helped by those first experiences at Purdue. But I had good advisors there. I had a good cohort, which I mean, I'm sure you all know that as graduate students, having a good cohort, people that matters so much to get you through graduate school. And so I pushed through, and I earned a master's degree and a PhD, and that, you know, for my folks, they didn't know what to make of that. You know, I'm so glad we're talking about this because first gen is so focused on the undergrad experience. But I think even people whose parents have an undergraduate degree sometimes don't understand what grad school is like. And I think that doctoral programs are different than master's programs, but all of it in terms of not having somebody that you know really well to be able to give you tips or guidance or I mean, I don't know if you felt like this, but I remember at one point, not too long into my undergraduate career, going home and feeling like I couldn't really talk to my parents anymore because they're so stupider than me. Of course they weren't, but I sure felt like they were at the moment. You know, I didn't know how to explain to them some of the stuff that we were doing in class that I was excited about because they didn't have all the background. They hadn't done the reading, right? And I probably could have been a little more generous in those early days, but I was 18 years old. What did I know? but so focusing on, being a first generation grad student, even if your parents have an undergraduate degree, I think there's something meaningful there too. Okay, next slide, Dr. Spellman. I won't belabor this, but I'm just talking about my career since I couldn't find a tenure track job right out. Part of it because Purdue is an excellent school, but it's not all that well known in political science. So in terms of the kind of places that would hire me and the prestige of my degree, I wasn't in the top echelon, even though I produced fine. So I got I got a 3-year visiting appointment at the University of Missouri St. Louis. And after the 3rd year, that position turned tenure track. I applied for it and I did not get it. So that was hard. It's you feel like your colleagues didn't want you, but it wasn't the right fit. I wasn't exactly what they were looking for. I was fortunate to get a tenure track job at a small Catholic school. When I say small, I'm talking like 1,000 students, not like half the size of North Central, less smaller than half the size of North Central, in Kansas City, Missouri. And so I went out to Avila. I was tenure track there. I had recently been divorced, and my ex-wife and my daughter had moved back to Indiana, had moved back to West Lafayette for professional reasons for my ex-wife. And so I started looking for jobs, kind of in a radius where I could get to West Lafayette pretty quickly. And that's when the North Central job opened up, and I applied, and I'm still grateful that I was able to come here in 2005, because I never missed the first day of school or never missed a daddy-daughter dance or a recital or any of those kind of things. It was really a wonderful opportunity for me. And then, of course, the college is a lot stronger than Avila. Avila is a wonderful place and has a great mission. Lots of first-generation students at Avila as well. But heavier teaching load, not as much research. You didn't have as much support from faculty when you did produce, because it kind of made everybody else look bad. And so this is a better professional place for me anyway. Because I came with 7 years of experience, I was brought in at the rank of associate, and was able to go up for full professor pretty quickly, and then was asked to participate in leadership. I was the division chair of a unit that was called Human Thought and Behavior for 5 years, and included education. So I know a lot about education and state mandates and all those things from being responsible for the Department of Education. It was a weird division. It was like athletic training was in there, and kinesiology, and then philosophy and history. Human thought and behavior, yet psychology was not in that division. I don't know what it's human thought, but they were in the science division. So it was a strange thing. And so I did that until we got a new vice president for academic affairs, who was charged with growth, and realized that you needed full-time deans if you really wanted to have growth. And so I applied, went through the process of internal search for the inaugural dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I was ultimately selected. I began that position in 2016, and that's where I am now. So I'll stop there. I'm happy. I mean, I'm most looking forward to the question and answer part. I hope I didn't talk too long. How are we on time? Did I do okay? I
You're
did
doing
okay.
fine. You're
I did
doing
okay.
fine.
Good. Okay. So if anybody has any questions for me or just wants to respond or tell your story, I'm delighted to hear it.
Well, I'll chime in a little bit because I can certainly relate to parents not having a clue what's happening when you're going on for graduate school. So my parents were immigrants from Ireland. Neither one went past 8th grade. And so,
Wow.
they were, but it was interesting when you said, my parents were, you're going to college. You're definitely going to college, but they didn't have a clue about how I was going to get there, or how
Are you going to pay for it?
how to pay for it. Not at all. Not at all. No. And then when I decided to go to grad school, their heads were spinning. It was like, well, what are you doing that for? But they did in the end become, obviously very excited about, my father would then brag about, his daughter that had a doctorate, that kind of thing. But
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. My mother still, I think, is the only person, she insists on putting like doctor on my birthday cards. Like the postal carrier is going to be tremendously impressed by her doctor son. It is nice to make them proud, though, in all the ways we can. That's for sure.
But
Thanks for
it definitely is definitely a challenge going to grad school as someone who doesn't have anybody in the family that had gone to grad school. And undergrad was one thing. You maybe at least had some peers you could hang on to. There were people in the same boat, and but grad school was. And I'm old, so grad school for women at the time I went was very difficult. I always tell the story that when I was doing my first master's, I walked into one of the classes one day and there was a very senior professor, and I do mean senior by numbers of age as well as his rank. And there were three of us that were women in the class, and he looked at us over the top of his glasses and said, "I don't believe women belong here. They're forcing me to leave you in my class. I will never speak to you directly. You will never get an A from me." Put his glasses back on and continued to lecture and never looked at us again. It was a real eye opener.
At a certain level, you'd like to appreciate the honesty. As terrible as it is, but my goodness, yeah, because I think that what happened not too many years after that is people who thought like that just didn't say it out loud, and then they still treated women in the class,
Yes.
as second-class citizens. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
what a shame.
we wouldn't
My
dare get
goodness.
away with that today, but
Oh my.
of
Let's
course,
hope not.
we're afraid because we had to at least get a B from him.
That's right.
So
That's right.
we sat very timidly and I used to, be very nervous around that gentleman. It was a long 16-week semester.
I'm certain it was. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. Yeah,
But that it does not kill you, makes you stronger, right?
yeah, there's always no question about that. That's right.
So anyone else have any stories to share about coming to grad level or any of that? Any questions for Dean Kelly?
I can go ahead and share.
Please.
It's really interesting because I'm a first generation grad student as well. My sister is as well, so it's really interesting. She's been a stay-at-home mom for some years now, and she kind of inspired me to go back to school. Getting my undergraduate was definitely a big deal in my family, but going to grad school is just a different level for us. So when I seen her go back for curriculum and instruction in math, I was really inspired. But it's definitely this feeling of nervousness and hesitation, just not knowing what to expect. And I can see that being troublesome for a lot of individuals and challenging. So it's really nice to see that we're both like two sisters just navigating those challenges in conversation. Oftentimes, sometimes other people might not understand, where the background that we're coming from, and everybody has their own unique background. So sometimes that makes it a bit challenging. Now, Dr. Spellman, you shared with us one of the challenges that you experienced. Dr. Caliendo, what is one other experience that you might have found to be challenging during your experiences?
Graduate school specifically? Graduate school specifically, or yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was I got married 2 years into graduate school, but it was someone that I met as undergrad. So she came out from Western Pennsylvania to Indiana with me, and so she was there, and was working. So that helped a little bit. Once she got there, she didn't come right away, and then once she came, that helped. But I just think about just the costs associated, that to get a computer. Like when I think about what I paid in 1995 for a ridiculously ginormous and non-powerful computer, with a terrible, when I think about what I paid, and then of course you had to buy in political science, lots of statistics, so statistical software that you had to sort of buy separately. We weren't running anything off networks or anything like that. I did get an email address when I showed up in 1993. Which was hilarious because I didn't know who I was supposed to write to. I didn't know anybody that had an email address. I didn't know what email was. But of course, then we started using it internally. But I just think about, I wish that I didn't have to worry about keeping the lights on, making sure the rent was paid. I wish I didn't have to worry about those things when so many of my colleagues were just worried about their work, just worried about their grades. And again, I was privileged enough that I could go. So, but I didn't have an assistantship, and most of them did. But if they would have held to the standard, which is mostly the case now for PhD programs, they only accept who they can fund. I wouldn't have got in. As I said, I told you I only got in 2 of the 10 places I applied anyway, and one of the 2 only had a master's degree. So they took me, but they didn't fund me, and I'm grateful that they did, because I wouldn't be where I am now if they didn't do it, or I would have had to find some other pathway to do it. So I just think about spending that time in the undergraduate library and having to worry about things that I know some of my colleagues didn't worry about. Dr. Spellman mentioned about the grades. It wasn't a gender bias for me, but my first semester, 3 classes, I got 2 Bs and an A. Well, grad school, B's and F, I mean, that's not so good, which meant I didn't get funded my second year because they didn't see me as one of the stronger students. And so it wasn't until my third year after I had a master's degree that I finally got an assistantship. And so that affected my life tremendously in terms of paying off student loans and the path to that and deferrals and, life happens. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to answer because I don't want it to sound like a complaint because there's always people that have it worse, but I do offer it in solidarity because I said, I know that some of you must be experiencing the same sorts of things, knowing that you have colleagues who don't have to take care of elderly parents or siblings or, I mean, there's just, I didn't have those things, but there's something in so many folks' lives. And when you're first gen, that generally means you're coming from a more modest um, economic background. It doesn't always mean that, but it certainly can mean that oftentimes. And that's what we're trying to do, right? As first gen kids, we're trying to break the cycle and start a new cycle for our families. Thanks for asking that. That was nice. By the way, your headshot's better
Yeah,
than mine.
absolutely. Thanks for choosing that.
Headshot's better than mine. That was
Not
really,
at all.
that's good high quality there. I like that.
I wanted to know why your headshot doesn't have your usual bow tie.
Yeah, I know. I kind of just change it up. I do have some headshots that have bow ties. It's funny that you mentioned that. So tomorrow morning, so the State of the Union address is tonight. If you're not, might not be paying attention, but so I have to be at 5:45 tomorrow. I got to be at CBS studio, and then after I'm done there, I go over to Fox 32 and I'll do theirs live. And I always have to decide: am I gonna wear a because you want to keep people guessing a little bit. You don't want to always you don't want to turn into a stereotype. And so I haven't decided yet if I'm going with a necktie or a bow tie tomorrow.
Well, that's an easy decision. It's eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one,
There you
right?
go. Not too bad.
I just wanted to pick up on one thing that I've heard a couple of people mention, and that's that whole piece about the imposter syndrome, and I think that is so common to all of us that are first gen. I think many people face that, but I think first gen students, it's the monkey on our back a lot of the time. It doesn't go away.
I was just gonna say that, and I hate to say that because you want to say, "Don't worry, y'all, it'll get." I've done all right for myself, but when I walk into a room, I always assume that I'm definitely not one of the smartest ones there. And that started from going to grad school, and I literally was the dumbest kid there. Not dumbest in terms of like some kind of Piaget IQ sort of thing, but just in terms of preparation. And so, yeah, I'm kind of waiting to be found out. I was waiting.
It's funny because obviously my children have picked up on my imposter syndrome, and for Christmas this year, our middle son gave me a book by Adam Grant. I don't know if you've read it, Dean Caliendo. It's called Hidden Potential.
I'm gonna write it on my little
It's
list.
a great book. He's a professor at the Wharton College at University of Pennsylvania. So I mean, that's where my boys went to school.
Oh, okay.
And he but it's interesting because he talks about the imposter syndrome, and he talks about how actually the imposter syndrome is an advantage because it makes you try harder, it makes you more aware and acutely sensitive to the situations, and often motivates you stronger than other people might be. But he lists a lot of those types of things, and it was interesting because Julie Carballo and her team were looking for people to give a little clip on advice, like, advice on their Instagram account, and I only have an Instagram account, so I can find out what my kids are doing. So, but I did actually do a short little thing for her about, this whole imposter syndrome and how as a first generation person, it can become something that we really use as an advantage. And I see it all the time. I mean, I feel it all the time. I mean, but I think if you turn it into a motivational piece, it does make you stronger. Yeah.
I love that. I added the book to my list, and I appreciate you mentioning it. That's great.
Yeah, he's written two. Well, I got the other one from the other son. I think they're pushing. I think his other one was called Think Again, which is a good one. And I won't say too much about it because my students will see some of this in my class. Mariella will see some of this in my class.
Yeah, don't tip your hand. Don't be a spoiler.
Any other comments or questions?
I was gonna say there's like unity in knowing though that all of us, have experienced it, or probably still feeling it. Like I know, like I'm doing this today and I was very nervous to do it. And I'm like, but I have to push myself. I have to get that confidence. And I mean, when I grew up with a single mom. I was a special education student since first grade. I had the IEP, the whole thing. And my mom insisted, I had to go to school. She made a lot of sacrifices so that I could also go to, Lyons Township and be in a good, district. And my case manager was like, the last day that I could submit my application to go to ISU to become a teacher. And she was like, you got to sit down right now and you got to write a paper. You have to submit this and, and push me to be here. And I remember I wrote my paper on the way that, first gen, kind of similar to like first gen students, the way that people with disabilities or people who are coming from different backgrounds are actually at a disadvantage. And that's what my whole paper was to get into school was about. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny.
Sounds like it was pushed you in the right direction though.
Yeah, I mean now we're here, and so it's like all of those hardships become your strengths and kind of sets you apart.
Yeah, which is one
I
of the
love that.
reasons
Thanks
I
for
really
sharing.
love that we have this at the grad level now, because I think there's so much at the undergrad level for people, at least at North Central. I'm overwhelmed with how much there is, but it's really, to me, it's very important that this is available, just a place to have a conversation at this point. Did I cut you off there? Sorry, dear Dean Caliendo.
No, I was saying, I was thanking her for sharing it. But also, on that point, Dr. Spellman, I love wearing my first gen gear and whatever, but I sometimes say that, I wasn't first gen. I was the kid whose parents didn't go to college. We didn't have a term for it. We didn't have any identity about it. In fact, I remember being quite embarrassed about it. And the funny thing is, it's sort of there's a social science theory about spiral of silence. And the notion is that, when you perceive yourself to be in the minority, you're less likely to speak up, even if you're not in the minority. And so I'm sure that most of the kids that I went to college with, their parents didn't go to college either, but nobody talked about it. And so you didn't know. And so what's so great about the first gen, the way first gen has sort of emerged nationally, is that you do find, exactly what Brianna was talking about in terms of the solidarity amongst us, that we have abilities to connect in that way and feel proud about it, feel proud about what we're doing, and be proud of our folks who made sacrifices for us so that we could do this. And then, we're hopefully doing the same thing if we have children. And so it's such a completely 180-degree different model than what I experienced when I was in college, which was just, don't mention it. Hopefully nobody will ask and nobody will talk. I wasn't embarrassed with my parents specifically, like as humans, but I mean, I didn't, we just didn't talk about it. And I think that was, things are better when you do, when you acknowledge. So.
Absolutely. Well, we're 1
So
minute. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Dr. Spellman. I just wanted to share that I can relate to the imposter syndrome as well. I think I'm probably the oldest one in our class on Tuesday night right now. And so there was a little bit of trepidation on my part about, starting the program at this age. Is it going to be worthwhile to me? Is it going to be difficult with 4 children at home, teaching full time, all of that? But I probably would have pursued this earlier had circumstances been different, had the online choices been there. The reimbursement from my other school districts I was in wasn't as good as it is where I am now. So, and then also we had our children later in life. So that made me busier at a different age. My husband went back to get his master's about 10 years ago. So he did that online when that was finally available for him. So lots of circumstances have led me to the point of doing this later in life, but I am thankful that I'm doing it. And our oldest son is adopted, and he had some mental health issues this year and was hospitalized. And I made a comment one day out of frustration to my mom. Maybe I just don't need to do this right now and I should just quit. And she was like, no, do not do that. You stay in the program. You're not going to get another opportunity. This is your time. Do it. And she was so supportive of me. So I really appreciate that. And my husband has been a support too, as I was adjusting to the workload and writing papers again after so many years. Being out of school, I had him proofread a couple papers for me, and he was willing to help. And he's like, it looks good, but I have no idea what you're talking about, but it looks good.
That's right.
So I really appreciate having this opportunity, and then also having coworker that is in it as well. We, help each other out, remind each other of those deadlines and things like that. So it's been a great experience so far.
Thanks, Michelle.
Can I just end it quickly because something I'm resonating with, we're talking about imposter syndrome, but I even feel it here in that, unlike your experiences, my mom, I don't even know that she understands what a master's is.
Right.
So it's almost hard to sit here and see a pinning ceremony, an induction ceremony. It's almost like I don't like all of this attention. And it's just what I know that I should do and why I should do it. I don't know why intrinsically it's something that I've always had. I have 3 little ones at home. I thought that this would be no problem at all to continue to do. And it's just acknowledging that this is something that's hard for me to even deal with now. So it's just something I'm resonating with all of you.
Well, you can reach out to us anytime.
Yeah, I was going to offer the same thing. I don't know if it's helpful to you, but my office is in Gold Spawn, and feel free to drop by or make an appointment. I'd be happy. One of the reasons I do these first gen things is so people can just put another face to people who understand first gen experiences. And I want to be a resource in the ways that I didn't have them. But I think that's, that pinning ceremony, I cry every year at the pinning ceremony because it isn't about us. It's about our folks at that thing, right? And to have the Wentz Concert Hall full of folks who may have wanted to go to college, but the opportunities weren't there for them, but they figured out a way to make it okay for their kids, and to see them walk across. I mean, commencement's amazing, of course. Commencement's always amazing, all the pumping, but there's something about that pinning ceremony that if you can, if it works out in your schedule, it's a pretty powerful thing. And it's also, it gives you a chance to give some gratitude to somebody who made a difference in your trajectory while you were at North Central. And that's a lovely gesture as well.
But as a really, really closet introvert, I can relate to, not wanting to have anything showy or anything. So the thing is, all of these ceremonies are optional.
That's right.
And you're in your very first class with your very first mean professor who's, just writing it like crazy. So, you don't have to make that decision for a while.
No, it's early.
But that does give me a segue into the next and last slide, which was just to really talk about, that you can actually reach out to me because I am the faculty mentor for, education for grad students anytime for one-to-one conversations and support again. And, as Dean Caliendo has graciously offered, you can always reach out to any one of the faculty that is on that list or any of the staff members that are on that list. And we'd be happy to have conversations, happy to hold hands. I always have a big box of tissues in my office because for some reason people like to come in my office to cry. So that's okay. But
don't tell on me. You don't tell on me.
But any other last minute questions? You've been so gracious and so engaged. It's been really lovely to have this nice intimate conversation.
No questions, but I did just want to thank everybody for sharing and giving us this opportunity to get to know each other a bit more and just connect on, being a first gen and what that feels like. So thank you.
Cool. Well, and I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank my liaisons for accepting my invitation to be a part of this. They were great in planning and divided up with slides they were comfortable presenting, which I think pushed you to a new level, which is great. It made my job so much easier. Dean Caliendo, I know that you're an incredibly busy man. And, with everything that's going on tonight and tomorrow for you, just deepest gratitude for all the time that you've spent and all of your wisdom that you've shared.
I'm honored to
very
be
much.
here.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm proud of all of you. I hope that doesn't sound paternalistic, but I'm proud to be to share that first gen status with you all because I know it's a difficult road, and so congratulations, and reach out if I can help, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank you
evening.
all.
All right. Take care. Have a great
Bye.
evening. And
Bye.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.